Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Kunjabi Jana Bhagirivara Radhe Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajachandranjana Yasodanandana Brajachandranjana Jamanatira Vanachadi Jamana Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajachandranjana Yasodanandana Brajachandranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatarasatasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premanandi. That's good. Leaning Tower of Mridanga. This visit has been focused on the prayers of Lord Brahma to Krishna, which is found in Canto 10. Canto 10, Chapter 14. Srimad Bhagavatam. How many of you are currently involved in some kind of a Srimad Bhagavatam reading group? Several, but not everyone. Okay. Well, I may need to go a little bit further back than I have been doing. The image on the screen is an image of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is pictured here seated on a lotus flower, and according to the Vedic teachings, not only Srimad Bhagavatam, but widely, in the process of creation, the Vedic picture of the beginning of creation is, there are several steps, but when universes, plural, many, many universes are generated in a seed-like form from the body of Mahavishnu, as they expand and expand and expand, they come in contact with the 24 elements. So there's the seed, and then there's the covering of the seed, kind of like the living entity from the male and the womb of the mother. The womb of the mother provides, there's Sanskrit terms for this, but the ingredients as well as the chamber in which a living entity grows. So similarly, material nature provides both, and Mahavishnu supplies the seed of the universe, and those elements cling to the outside of that universe, and gradually as the universe expands and expands, you have a whole universe. And then Mahavishnu expands himself within each universe. And the number of those universes is many, many, too many to count, innumerable. And from that Vishnu form that expands within each universe, Brahma is born. One of the names of Brahma, there are different names to identify his characteristics. One of them is Aja, means born without a mother. Not too many entities are born without a mother. He's very special. He's born directly from Garbhodakshay Vishnu, who generates a lotus with a stem and a lotus flower on top. It's said that the stem on which Brahma appears is where all the planets within the universe are situated in a vertical direction, higher to lower. And he is at the top of that stem and the lotus flower. And after, there's many details, but he undergoes austerity, a mantra meditation, by which he comes to realize the absolute truth. He becomes well acquainted with the ocean of truth, just from his austerity and mantra meditation. And he then visualizes, or Vishnu shows himself before Brahma, and there's some exchange between them. And then he sets about building the universe, because that's what he's created for. To build the universe and then to fill it up with living entities of all varieties of species. And there's a system for that described in the Bhagavatam. So when we get to the 10th canto, he makes a visit from the spiritual world, from the topmost region of the universe to this middle region of the universe where Krishna appears once during each of his days. His days are of long duration. So when he visits Vrindavan, he sees something that's astonishing. He sees little feature of Krishna who's living in this world as if he's just a village boy, 4 years old at this time, this pastime occurs, taking care of calves. He hasn't gotten big enough yet to take care of cows, so he's taking care of the calves. And he's with all of his friends. And they're having a blast, doing what little boys like to do. Little boys like to play, right? So Krishna was really good at having really nice activities of playing with all of his friends. And the calves would tag along. And they encountered a giant demon, a really, really giant, many miles long serpent, whose jaws were wide open, wanting to swallow Krishna and kill Krishna. That was his intention. Instead of killing Krishna, there's many things that happened, but Krishna entered his mouth. The serpent closed his mouth with the intention, like a boa constrictor, of just digesting him. But Krishna can't be killed. So another one of Krishna's names is Yogeshwara. You've heard that name before? Yogeshwara? You've not heard it. You know what yoga, you've heard of yoga, right? Yoga. So yoga, the second half is Ishwara. Ishwara means controller. And so he's the controller of all yogic powers, mystic powers. Put the two together, it's Yogeshwara. He's the master of all mystic powers. So he exhibited one of those mystic powers by becoming big. Mystics can do all kinds of, material law defying things. They can fly in the air. They can become very tiny. They can become very big. They can obtain something from a distant places by reaching out. Prapti Siddhi. So there's mystic powers. But all those mystic powers are emanating originally from Krishna. So in his Yogeshwara feature, he just expanded himself. Bigger, 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 bigger. So the serpent that was swallowing him, he got bigger, bigger, bigger. But Krishna he was better at getting bigger. And the serpent suffocated because he was so big. And the serpent died. The soul left his body, went into the sky, a bright, luminous light. Krishna exited from the mouth of the giant serpent, and the soul, which was that bright light, merged into Krishna's body, right before Lord Brahma's eyes. The cowherd boys saw it also. And they thought, wow, that was really good. Then it was time for lunch. Because it was around noon. I'm skipping some detail. Oh, here's a nice detail. When Krishna was 3 years and 4 months, he wanted to herd the cows. His mother said, no. They're so big. You've seen cows that are fully grown. They're really big. Big horns. No. He went to his father. His father didn't say no, but he didn't say yes. Because he knew that Krishna really liked the cows. And the cows really liked Krishna. So he made a compromise. You can herd the calves. They're small. But you have to come back for lunch. So Krishna, at 3 years, think of somebody that's 3 years, 4 months, started herding calves with all his friends. And a year later, when he's almost 5, is when this pastime took place. Almost 5. they stopped to have lunch. Because that particular day, Krishna made a plan, instead of going back for lunch, let's take lunch with us. So they went with their lunch, and they sat down for lunch. And they're eating lunch. And Brahma was flying above that scene in his swan carrier, seeing this amazing series of events, and then this little boy just sitting there with his friends having lunch. Like, who is he? And is there any limit to his mystic powers? He got inquisitive. Inquisitive is good, but what he did with that inquisitiveness wasn't good. He decided, I'm going to match my mystic powers against his mystic powers and see who wins. Bad idea. So to test his mystic power, he gathered up all the calves while the boys were having their lunch and hid them in a cave. And then the boys saw the calves were missing. Krishna said, I'll go find them. You continue with your lunch. So Krishna went looking here and there and everywhere for the calves. Of course, he's omniscient. So it was a Leela. But he couldn't find the calves. And while he was away looking for the calves, by mystic power, Brahma kidnapped the boys. Now, that's a crime. You don't kidnap people. Certainly you don't kidnap children. And he kidnapped them. And not only he kidnapped them, but he interrupted Krishna's pastime. Big mistake. Big mistake. So he came back to where the boys had previously been, and he saw there they were sitting having lunch. And he was bewildered. So he went back to the cave, and they were in the cave. He went back to where they're having lunch, and they're having lunch. What's going on? Then Krishna answered his inquisitiveness by manifesting as many cowherd boys as there were, forms of Lord Narayana, being worshipped by all of the potencies. There's a long list of potencies, unlimited potencies, all personified, worshipping Krishna. All potencies, material, spiritual, everything, in their spiritual identities, in a spiritual form, worshipping Krishna. And then, poof, they all disappeared. And there was just Krishna looking at him, smiling, with unblinking eyes, holding some rice and yogurt in his hand. It was an overwhelming experience. He then realized that each of those cowherd boys that were sitting having lunch second time around, they were Krishna, expansions of Krishna, or expansions of Narayan, who is an expansion of Krishna. And all the calves, same thing. And what happened is, there's a whole chapter dedicated to, during that period of time that Brahma was gone and came back, an earthly time, a year passed. That is, the passage of time on higher planetary systems, it works on a different scale, relative time. So his short period of time looking to see where the cowherd boys had gone, a whole year passed on earth, and Krishna, as an identical manifestation of each of the cowherd boys, fulfilled the desires of the mothers of his friends who wanted Krishna as their son. So they got to experience having Krishna as their son for a whole year. And when Brahma saw this, he came back, and in a secluded place, he saw Krishna standing there underneath a tree, smiling. And so he offered prayers. So far we've covered 12 of those prayers. And now we're ready for starting with prayer number 13. And did you have your little magic device for sound? How to summarize the first 12 verses. There's a lot there. Here's some principal elements. One is the bhakti process is the means to know Krishna, not the gyan process or speculative knowledge process. That's not the way to know Krishna. Then he describes if you use those other processes, then a limited understanding can come, but not the complete understanding. And the complete understanding comes when Krishna sees the devotion of his devotee, and then he discloses himself to his devotee. Brahma understands he did a bad thing. He made a big boo-boo, and he's going to get a reaction for that mistake. And he offers a prayer that says, let that reaction come when due to mistakes that we make, we're responsible for our mistakes. And let the reaction come without whining that the reaction is coming. But don't budge an inch from the position of shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. And you stay like that, and you become eligible for the kingdom of God. There are several verses where he makes his formal, very sincere, heartfelt apology. He reveals that all energies are from Krishna, and thus everything that his energies are under him and within his control. And he ends again asking for forgiveness. So that's what we covered so far. There's some text. This is not from Canto 10, but this is from Canto 3. Canto 3 has a whole section about creation or sub-creation, what Brahma does. So Brahma is offering a prayer to Krishna like this. "O my Lord, your devotees can see you through the ears by the bona fide process of hearing, and thus their hearts become cleansed, and you take your seat there in their heart. You are so merciful to your devotees that you manifest yourself in the particular eternal form of transcendence in which they always think of you." It's an important verse. It's a nice verse. Krishna is unlimited, God is unlimited, and the ways in which people have regard for Krishna is also very personal and unlimited. Variegatedness is without limit. And Krishna reciprocates with their regard for him by manifesting himself according to their regard for him, including even different forms corresponding to their regard for him. And so there's so many forms. And they're all manifestation of his unlimitedness. And this form of Krishna that Brahma is seeing is that original form from which all other forms emanate or are expanded. So now we're moving on. This is a little introduction to verse 13. Lord Brahma has taken full shelter of the bhakti process, abandoning speculative attempts to know the unlimited. After offering apologies to Krishna, Lord Brahma now asserts his realization that Krishna is the original Narayan, underlining original Narayan, because Narayan is the name of the Lord of Vaikuntha, who is the Lord of the spiritual abode, and Krishna is the origin of that Narayan. Here's text 13. My dear Lord, it is said that when the three planetary systems are merged into the water at the time of dissolution, your plenary portion, Narayana, lies down on the water. Gradually, a lotus flower grows from his navel. This is Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and Brahma takes birth upon that lotus flower. Certainly these words are not false. Thus, am I not born from you? So he's looking at a little 4-year-old boy saying, you're my father. And he's the original person in the universe, the oldest and original person. So he's giving his reasons why I understand that you are the origin of Narayan, who is the shelter of all living beings, and so therefore you're my father. Are you not? Am I not born from you? Text 14. O Lord of Lords, you are the seer of all creation. You are indeed everyone's dearest life. Are you not therefore my father, Narayan? Narayan refers to one whose abode is in the water, born from Nara, or Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And that Narayana is your plenary portion. All your plenary portions are transcendental. They are absolute and are not creations of Maya. Now, to discuss this properly would take some time, and those of you that, like to understand these things more deeply, you can go to Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is a painting of Krishna Das Kaviraj, who's the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And there's like 30, 35 pages discussing these two verses, in depth with commentary, etc. So you're welcome at your leisure to go through that section. We're going to keep going. Since Krishna is the original Narayana, here's a breakdown. Ayana means refuge. Krishna is the refuge, or Ayana, of all Naras. Naras means all living entities, all living beings, Nara. The aggregate of all living beings, you are the refuge, so you are Narayan. You're the original. Second, Krishna is the source of all the Purusha avatars. What are the Purusha avatars? The Purusha avatars are forms of Vishnu within the creation that deal with material creation, material nature, etc., etc. Those are the Purusha avatars. There's 3. Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Kshirodaksha Vishnu, that's the Purusha avatars. He's the source of the Purusha avatars. He protects and invests potencies in these Purushas, who in turn are the shelter of all living beings. These are, Krishna Das Kaviraj gives 3 reasons where Brahma is having this debate. Krishna says back to Brahma, what? Why are you saying I'm your father? You're the oldest living being and I'm just a little boy. What can consider what you're saying? And Brahma says, it's true. And I'll give you 3 reasons. Here's 2 of the 3 reasons. And then Krishna oversees the wanderings, or ayana, of all living beings. So you're Narayana, who is my father. Okay. For those of you that like philosophy, read Chaitanya Charitamrita. It goes into it in detail. For those of you who don't like philosophy, we're going to keep moving. Here's text 15. My dear Lord, if your transcendental body, which shelters the entire universe, is actually lying upon the water, who's that he's referring to? Lying upon the water, the Garbhodak ocean, lying upon the water. So, if your transcendental body, which is the shelter of the entire universe, is actually lying upon the water, then why were you not seen by me when I searched for you? And why, though I could not envision you properly within my heart, did you then suddenly reveal yourself? So let's go over that again. The first slide we saw Brahma sitting on a lotus flower. And the lotus flower sprouts from a stem. And the stem comes from the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So when Brahma was born on top of that lotus flower, that pretty interesting crib, lotus flower, there was nothing in the universe. It was darkness in all directions. No street lights, no sun, no moon, no electricity. Darkness in all directions. Not just like kind of dark, it's total darkness inside the universe. And he could hear some splashing of the waves of the Garbhodak ocean beneath him. So he thought, let me go see where I'm coming from, then I can find out my source of existence. He began to climb down the stem and down the stem and down, and he couldn't find the end of the stem. And then he realized, I'm not going to find out this way. But that's in his question here. How is it when I searched for you, I couldn't see you? And now, not only I could see you standing in front of me, the original form from which everything comes, but I could not envision you within my heart, and then you suddenly revealed yourself. So what happened was, he went back up on top of that stem. He began chanting mantra because he heard a mantra and he knew what to do to chant mantra. And then in Canto 2, Chapter 9, Vishnu revealed himself. So why I couldn't see you then, and then you suddenly revealed yourself? Could you explain that to me? So that was text 15, and now we're going to have a narration of verses 15, this starting verse, and then a response all the way up to verse 29. It's nice, it's recording, it's entertaining. It'll get louder.
Lord Brahma attempts to express the ramifications of the opulence that he has seen Krishna display. He prays to Krishna, "O Lord, I previously was unable to either understand or see you due to the coverings of your own Maya, your illusory energy. But you are the controller of that Maya, and that was proved by Mother Yashoda's seeing the universe within your abdomen. Now, at the present, that universe is externally manifest as your inconceivable energy, and it is therefore all that I perceive. Today, by your manifesting all the cows, cowherd boys, and Vishnu forms who are being worshipped by all living entities, you've demonstrated that the entire creation is your inconceivable potency. And now, I'm seeing before me the original form of the unlimited, supreme, absolute truth. To the ignorant, you seem to be of this material world, although it is you who appears as Brahma, the creator, who appears as Vishnu, the maintainer, and as Shiva, the destroyer. To demonstrate that you, the absolute truth, is an unlimited transcendental person, you descend within the universe as avatars, and you take birth among the demigods sages, humans, animals, and the aquatics. As an avatar, you then, by your spiritual potency, perform your innumerable, inconceivable, mysterious pastimes. Due to you, this entire universe, which, like a dream, is by nature unreal, nevertheless appears real. And thus, it covers one's consciousness and assails one with repeated miseries. This universe appears real because it is manifested by the potency of illusion emanating from you, whose unlimited transcendental forms are full of eternal happiness and knowledge. You are the one Supreme Soul, the primeval Supreme Personality, the Absolute Truth, self-manifesting, endless and beginningless. You are eternal and infallible, perfect and complete, without any rival, and free from all material designations. Your happiness cannot be obstructed, nor have you any connection with material contamination. Indeed, you are the indestructible nectar of immortality. By the grace of his spiritual master, a jnani can mix bhakti with his jnana. He will then be able to see you as the soul of all souls. He will be able to see you as the super soul of his own self. This vision will allow him to cross the ocean of material existence. For one who has thus realized you, the illusory energy at once subsides, for he is free of the false vision of perceiving anything as separate from you. Seeing you with this vision of knowledge and remaining in knowledge of you, devoid of the false perceptions that are the cause of the existence of the material world, his ignorance and illusion cease. Therefore, through knowledge of you and knowledge of himself as your eternal servant, neither liberation nor bondage have meaning for him, just as day and night have no meaning for one present on the sun planet. How foolish are the Jnanis! How foolish are the Mayavadis! They're fools because they consider your form as a manifestation of illusion. How foolish are the conditioned souls! Regardless of how intelligent they think themselves as being, they all perceive themselves as their bodies, and they thus fail to see their self as part of you. They're all fools because they reject you, and in so doing, they search for the Supreme Soul outside of your Supreme Personality. How foolish are all of these so-called learned men. O unlimited Lord, the saintly devotees who have added bhakti to their jnana seek you out within their own bodies by rejecting everything separate from you. Indeed, how can discriminating persons appreciate the real nature of a rope lying before them, until they refute the illusion that it is a snake. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years.
So we'll continue from there a little bit. 10 after 7. Brahma, summarizing, Brahma has declared, you are the unlimitedly powerful Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is even the source of Narayana. Krishna replies, really? How does one know that? Text 29. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet. The Sanskrit there is color-coded. The mercy of your lotus feet. Padambuja dvaya prasada. And even a slight trace of that, the mercy of your lotus feet, lesha. He can understand janati tattva. He can understand the greatness of your personality, Bhagavan Mahimno. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. Okay, where do you go from there? Krishna is saying, now that you have understood me, Brahma, what is your desire? He just wants to be engaged in devotional service. That's his desire. My dear Lord, I therefore pray to be so fortunate, Buddhi Bhaga, so fortunate that in this life, as Lord Brahma, or in another life, wherever I may take my birth, I may be counted as one of your devotees. I pray that wherever I may be, even among the animal species, I can engage in devotional service to your lotus feet. Now that's a very elevated state of consciousness. But that's the consciousness that Brahma has achieved. Now it starts to get really interesting because Brahma is in Vrindavan. He's a visitor, but he's appreciating the unique kind of love that the residents of Vrindavan have for him. He has the love of a chief engineer of the universe. And he has lots of power, lots of adoration coming his way, and he solves problems that even the demigods can't solve, and he does it in the mood of serving Krishna. But he has an appreciation of the very, very special kind of love that the residents of Vrindavan have. So that's what this next section is. There's a painting of Vishwanath Chakravarti who writes in his commentary, at this point Brahma falls into the ocean of Braja Prem. O Almighty Lord, how greatly fortunate are the cows and ladies of Vrindavan, the nectar of whose breast milk you have happily drunk to your full satisfaction. taking the form of their calves and children. Remember that? For 1 year? Krishna not only manifested the form of each cowherd boy, because the mothers desired to have Krishna as their son. So when they went home at the end of the day, they were breastfeeding their boys, who in this case it was Krishna. And the calves, Krishna manifested himself in exact likenesses of each calf, because the cows had a desire to give their milk directly to Krishna. So he became their calf for 1 year. And calves grow over a course of a year for sure, as do 4-year-old boys become older. Still, all the Vedic sacrifices performed from time immemorial up to the present day have not given you as much satisfaction. That is to say, service is meant for pleasing the one being served. And if one is serving a master or serving another who's being served, and you can understand this is more pleasing to the master or the one being served, then there's appreciation for one who's able to do service better, sing better, cook better, dance better, speak better, clean better, be better. There's appreciation. So Brahma is appreciating those residents of Vrindavan that please him more than since the beginning of time. All special rituals and sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas and done very nicely. These residents of Vrindavan please you even more than all of that put together. How greatly fortunate. Aho bhagyam, he says it twice. How greatly fortunate are Nanda Maharaj, the cowherd men, and all the other inhabitants of Brajabhumi. There's no limit to their good fortune, because the absolute truth, the source of transcendental bliss, of the eternal Supreme Brahman, has become their friend. Now this is an important teaching within the Bhagavatam. That is, the source of everything is a person. The source of everything is not only a person, but there are different ways of relating to that source of everything in a majestic way, worshiping the Supreme as God Almighty. As I'm saying that, I'm thinking of the hymns we used to sing in church every Sunday, Lord God Almighty, merciful. And so that's a majestic kind of adoration of the Supreme, which is very nice. It's a natural way of relating to the Supreme source of everything. That's the Vaikuntha mood. And then in Vrindavan, there's the sweetness mood. And the sweetness overwhelms the majesty, so much so they don't see Krishna as the supreme source of everything. Their intimacy of love overwhelms that understanding. So they're not so much interested in the majesty feature that Krishna shows as much as the intimacy feature of being his friend, being his mother, being one of the gopis, friends of Krishna. One more verse and we'll end, because we're going to continue with this tomorrow. There's this word Bhuribhaga again. Yet, even though the extent of good fortune of these residents of Vrindavan is inconceivable, we 11 presiding deities of the various senses, headed by Lord Shiva, are also most fortunate, because the senses of these devotees of Vrindavan are the cups through which we repeatedly drink the nectarian, intoxicating beverage of the honey of your lotus feet. Now, I made a separate PowerPoint presentation just on this one verse. It's deep. So what are the 11 presiding deities of the various senses? So the 11 includes, the number 11 is the mind, and then there's knowledge acquiring senses and working senses. 5 and 5. The knowledge acquiring senses, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and sense of touch. 5 knowledge acquiring senses. There's 5 working senses, and then the 11th is the mind. And they're presiding deities in the material creation over each of those. Like, for example, Prabhupada's teaching, very simple. You cannot even blink your eyelid without sanction of a demigod. If sanction is removed, you can't walk across the floor. There are entities who are controlling deities of the senses without which they can't work, with which they can work. We are dependent. And those persons who are the presiding deities of the 11 senses are very fortunate, because through the agency of the Vrindavan residents, and there's more detail to this, but the Vrindavan residents, they can directly, they're not dependent upon the demigods, because Krishna is directing their activities. And through their senses, they can directly perceive Krishna. Through their senses, they can directly perceive Krishna through the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses. And through their senses, the demigods, presiding deity demigods, can also perceive Krishna, because the residents of Vrindavan are very merciful. Now, it takes a little bit more to go through this. Another evening we'll go through it together. I'll end with one more. My greatest possible good fortune, here's Bhuri Bhagyam again, would be to take any birth, whatever, in this forest of Gokula, and have my head bathed by the dust falling from the lotus feet of any of its residents. Their entire life and soul is the Supreme Personality Godhead Mukunda, the dust of whose lotus feet is still being searched for in the Vedic mantras. So he's moving into the mood of the residents of Vrindavan. Although he's only a visitor, he's appreciating how special they are and the good fortune that they're receiving, and wishes to be a recipient of their mercy. And is this a key to the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is to enter into the mood of loving service to Krishna in Vrindavan. One needs the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan. I'll say it again. To enter into the mood that the residents of Vrindavan have, one needs the mercy of those residents of Vrindavan. There's a nice story. I'll end with a story. There's a story that Lord Chaitanya discussed one time with the chief priest in Sri Rangam. Sri Rangam is a humongous temple, the biggest temple in India. It covers several blocks. It's really gigantic. And the deity is Ranganath. So Lord Chaitanya stayed at the home of the chief priest of Ranganath for 4 months. While they were together, the chief priest and Lord Chaitanya had discussions on spiritual topics in the evening. And one evening, Lord Chaitanya asked, "You're a worshipper of Lakshmi Narayana." Yes. And Lakshmi is considered to be most chaste, always with the lotus feet of Lord Narayan, yes. So could you explain to me why Lakshmi wanted to leave the lotus feet of Narayan and enter into Krishna's rasa dance? Doesn't sound like chaste. And he didn't say it. I said that. And the Venkatabhatta replied, there's no problem, because Narayana and Krishna are the same. Then Lord Chaitanya replied, very well, Narayana and Krishna are the same, but why Lakshmi wasn't allowed to enter into the rasa dance if they're the same? And not only that, she's the goddess of fortune, and she underwent austerities for a long time and still wasn't enabled to enter into the rasa dance. And she's the goddess of fortune. Why is she underdoing austerities? And she still cannot enter the rasa dance. Can you explain? And Venkatabhatta said, no, I can't, but I think you can. Can you explain? And the explanation is what I just said. To enter into the activities of the residents of Vrindavan, you have to have the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan. And the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan is manifest. One of the ways it's manifest is to have a kind of love that majesty is not really the impetus, but sweetness is the impetus for that love. And one gets that mood from those who have that mood. And by getting the mercy of those, the residents of Vrindavan, the eternal associates of Krishna in Vrindavan, one can get that mood. And the way to get that mood from them is by getting that mood from one who's intimately connected with the eternal associates of Vrindavan. Then one can get that mood. And then one can enter into the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and enjoy, according to different rasas, according to one's nature, loving pastimes with Radha and Krishna. So that's unpacking this statement right here. The Mukunda is the dust of his feet are being searched for in all the Vedic mantras. But the residents of Vrindavan, they don't have to search. Brahma is the original recipient of all Vedic knowledge, and he's sharing this with the source of all Vedic knowledge. He's realizing what's within the Vedas that was manifest by him in a very personal way. And so he's the head of our sampradaya, so we're hearing from him. So we should take it very seriously. And Lord Chaitanya came to give that kind of love through the chanting of the holy name, but also through the association of those devotees that are like him. He and the Goswamis and the followers of the Goswamis. Okay. We've been going for about an hour. Let's see if there's some discussion. We have one more evening before we complete this session. There's a hand up in the back.
Thank you, Maharaj. A question and a clarification. The question is the lotus stem, the lotus flower and the stem from Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. Is that for illustration or is it real? Because in the the structure of the universe, it's not mentioned, I think.
It is mentioned, but it's mentioned not always consistently. It's real. Here's what our acharyas say about the stem. the stem is a manifestation of the collective karma of all the living entities that are in the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And as time and the living entities mix with material nature, the karma of those living entities becomes agitated, and it's manifest in the form of that stem. And within the stem is the higher and lower and middle planetary planets. The planetary systems are with. So the stem is not just like the drawing is. Its stems are generally skinny, and then what's on top of the stem is something bigger than the stem. So it's not necessarily, there's a vertical dimension to the universe, which was your question, but it's not like running within the middle of the universe. There's this tube. And on the top of the tube, or the stem, is Brahma's planet. It's not figurative, but it's not, like a skinny little stem on top of which is a flower. It's there, it's real. It's not figurative.
Thank you, Maharaj. And the clarification is, the 11 presiding deities of the senses and the working senses, they were able to perceive Krishna, but the residents of Vrindavan, they were able to see Krishna because
without the assistance of demigods.
Yes, so their spiritual through their spiritual senses.
Yes.
But the demigods in charge were also able to see. That means that they were being perceived through the material senses.
It's subtle and delicate, but the understanding that our acharyas explain on this verse is the residents of Vrindavan are naturally merciful. They don't have to, I wish I may, I wish I might, wish upon this star tonight. They don't have to go through that stuff. They're naturally merciful. And they're merciful to the demigods without even thinking about it. So by the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan, who are directly with their spiritual senses perceiving Krishna, through their mercy, they're able to also perceive. That's the explanation. Well, that's one of the explanations. But you like this topic. I think I can share with you the PowerPoint I created, because I found it fascinating, because it's referred to elsewhere also. So you like details, I'll send it to you, and you can try to sort your way through the details. Next.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I believe it was in the first slide, or the first verse that was presented here.
Yeah.
And part of it stated, you manifest yourself in the form of transcendence, in which your devotees always think of you, I believe.
Yeah, that's you got it.
Could you explain that?
Sure. First of all, two things. To understand that message, to understand understand Krishna. This is now Jiva Goswami explaining. That which is the source of everything has unlimited and inconceivable potencies, or God has unlimited and inconceivable potencies. Not accepting that, it's not possible to understand. Accepting that, then it's possible to understand. Both inconceivable and unlimited. That's one. And based upon that one, that's a Bhagavan conception, that which is unlimited and inconceivable has the unlimited and inconceivable capacity or potency to manifest transcendental forms that are not material. It's not like rubber stretching or something. It's just the source of everything can manifest unlimited transcendental forms, but the manifesting of those forms are in reciprocation with the love of those who see him as an object of love. So according to their love, he manifests a form to correspond with their love. And how many varieties of love are there? So how many varieties of forms are there? Now there may be standard pictures. Here's a very nice example, a classic example. From Krishna's walking into the wrestling arena of Kamsa in Mathura. Right? You familiar with that scene? Krishna grew up in Vrindavan. Kamsa wanted to kill Krishna. So he sent a courier to bring him to Mathura. And the plan was he was going to kill him when he came to Mathura. And one of the plans to kill him was to have these humongous wrestlers wrestle Krishna and Balaram. So when he walked into the wrestling arena, Krishna and Balaram, they had over their shoulder the tusk, the broken tusk of a giant elephant that Krishna just killed. And as he was walking with a bloodied end over their shoulder, there were 11 different categories of people that saw him, the same person, in different ways because of their love for him. Some saw like this, like that, or the other. It's a very nice verse. So it's one person perceived differently by different persons. And that's just the one form of Krishna. And then there's so many other forms other than the Krishna form. And so people see him in a transcendental form according to their worship of him. That's the meaning of that verse. And there's a source of all of those forms, and that original source of all those forms is Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. That's the Bhagavatam's teaching. Someone else? Hey!
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
So, the question I wanted to ask was, did Brahma think, before Brahma found out that the boys eating lunch was Krishna after he put them in the cave, did he think that every time the boys blinked, they went back to the cave and they kept blinking and going back and forth?
Do you understand the question? Do you understand the question?
Every time the covered boys were blinking, does
We're
Brahma
blinking?
Yeah, does Brahma think, is that yeah.
Blinking? The cowherd boys weren't blinking.
But did Brahma think that every time the cowherd boys did blink, they went back and forth?
No. The cowherd boys didn't blink. And that wasn't a cue for Brahma to go back and look again. Where's the blinking come from anyways?
I think he was thinking that they were teleporting. Is that what you were thinking?
No. Oh, okay. Now I get it. You ready? Pay attention. The original cowherd boys that Krishna was playing with every day, they were in the cave. They didn't teleport back and forth. But Krishna, being a Yogeshwara, the master of mystic powers, he manifested identical forms that were himself, not the boys in the cave, but himself, looking exactly like the boys that were in the cave. Every one of them. With the same voice and the same stature and the same personality and the same bodily features and the same everything, same haircut. Everything. Just looking just like, but it wasn't. They stayed in the cave. Okay?
Krishna Guru Maharaj. The question is, when we are saying Vrindavan Vasis, who are we referring to? Because I'm in the I'm not there yet club. If I move to Vrindavan, what mercy I would give to who are non-Vrindavan Vasis. So who are we referring to when it comes to Vrindavan Vasis?
Who are the residents of Vrindavan?
Yes.
Is your question?
Yeah.
If you were to move to Vrindavan, how are you going to find those residents of Vrindavan?
No. So if I move to Vrindavan,
I hope that
then
day may
somebody-
come. That would be very nice. Then what?
so I'm not there yet, Guru Maharaj. So how I can give mercy to who are non-Vrindavan Vasis? Because you mentioned that to enter into Vrindavan or to enter into the Leela of Radha and Krishna, you need mercy of
Yes.
Vrindavan Vasis. So
Yes. So if you supposing you go with your camera and a tour guide and your taxi and you're going zooming around and looking at the places of Vrindavan, you're not in Vrindavan. And you're not associating with the eternal associates of Krishna in Vrindavan either. That's the covering or the veneer or the oil that's covering the water that's not the water. It's the covering. So to enter into Vrindavan and enter into Krishna's eternal pastimes in Vrindavan, that requires more than a ticket. It requires more than going there. It requires a heart that's been made pure and a willingness to receive that mercy that comes from those merciful eternal associates of Krishna. They're there, but they're not manifest for us to see. We see other stuff, the covering stuff. But even if we go there as a tourist, it's a special place. Because beneath the covering, there's the eternal. And as one goes further in the purification realm of life, then one can feel and perceive and participate in eventually those loving exchanges. And life becomes like that for elevated Vaishnavas. That's, for example, the Goswamis were like that. Okay?
thank you very much.
We have something over on this side.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. It's very interesting to see how Lord Brahma was able to understand through that 1 year Lord Krishna was drinking the breast milk of cows and the elder gopis. I was thinking he was busy going back and forth to the cave. So it really shows that Krishna revealed to him.
Yes. Yes.
And as he was also mentioning Pratibahu Prabhu's question about the 11 presiding deities.
Yeah.
So that way also Brahma and the other demigods, they were able to perceive the Lord.
Yes. Not and not the surface perceiving, but the transcendental perceiving. Okay? By their mercy. Because otherwise it's not going to happen. So it happened because of their mercy. That answer your question?
Yes, Guru
Okay.
Maharaj. I have a follow-up on that, the understanding of demigods. I don't know, it could be my misunderstanding of lack of understanding. I feel the practicing devotees or the pure devotees are better than the demigods in terms of connection or the relationship with the Lord. So when I heard this, I somehow felt, I know they are also elevated, but I was just trying to probably see in comparison to the pure devotees.
Well, what you're saying is what Brahma is saying. We're demigods. We're way up there in universal capacity, but we're down there compared to the Brajvasis who are more qualified than we are. And by their mercy, we can experience and understand things that as demigods we can't. It's just another way of saying what you said.
Sorry, Guru Maharaj. I think My question was understanding demigod's position with respect to the practicing devotees.
Oh, so practicing devotees. Well, they're practicing devotees. They're elevated practicing devotees. Then there's pure devotees who are not just practicing, they're not just sadhana, but they're prema bhaktas. And they're more elevated, yes. But practicing devotees, the demigods are practicing. They're very elevated practicing devotees. Okay? Others? We have anything online? No? Something?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. One question. So Lord Brahma is talking of Mayavadis here in that description.
Yes, he was.
So were Mayavadis also there?
Oh, yeah. It's not a new invention.
I thought, right.
In simple terms, because it's discussed earlier in his prayers, in the first 12 verses, there are those that have an appreciation for the impersonal feature, and they deny the personal feature. They have a rationale that denies different rationales that deny